Dursban, for example, we can sell quite a lot each month, sometimes 20 cartons, sometimes even 30.
Each month we can sell more or less half a ton of rovral in the Larangan area and roundabout.
I was using an insecticide called Monitor. I felt nauseous, and then my head began spinning. I saw the ground going round and round.
The number of poisonings rose sharply. Almost 70% of the community that was examined had been poisoned or was affected by pesticides.
Agricultural produce is the most important source of existence for the farmer. Tirelessly, the farmer will struggle to achieve the maximum crop using many methods. Only through maximum harvests can the farmer repay the large amount of credit needed to plant shallots. Since the start of the Green Revolution in Indonesia in the late 1960s, pesticides have been considered to be a necessary component of improved yield, like fertilizer. For the last 25 years, pesticides have been vigorously promoted by government programs and multinational companies. They can be obtained easily, even in remote village stores, with no restriction or regulation. The promotion of pesticides has been so successful right up to the family level that farmers believe totally in the benefits and regard the chemicals as the saviors of their crops. Moreover, almost every day, pesticide salesmen intensively encourage the farmers to spray. Using various demonstration techniques and enticements, the salesmen corner the farmers until they feel guilty if they do not spray.
So, it's just as I mentioned earlier. If you're looking for an alternative, use this, rovra. So you're not using rovra, how come?
It's too expensive.
But look at it this way. Think about the money you lose if, say, 200 of your plants are damaged. It's better to take care of it as early as possible, don't you think?
It is as if each salesman is blaming the farmer if he does not use the product. Consequently, farmers have tended to become more fearless to experiment with various chemicals.
Are you using Dursban? You're not. How come? Why don't you use it?
It didn't kill the flies.
Oh, for flies. How many cc's did you use? 2 spoons? That won't kill the flies. Look, if you want to use Dursban, then 2 spoons isn't the right dose, okay? If you're using Dursban, then you have to think per tank. So for a 17 tank, then you have to use a minimum of 1 of these, plus another half. Now this is 20 cc's, right? So if you have 20 liters, you have to add another half. So you need a minimum of 30 cc's per tank.
This persuasive cornering is accompanied by creating the image that a modern farmer is one who uses modern equipment like sprayers. The stereotype of the heroic farmer has him armed with his pesticide sprayer, and this in turn generates a feeling of pride in spraying. Farmers will even spray before any symptoms of pests or disease, because pesticide sellers encourage them to treat spraying as a kind of insurance or early prevention.
Saya melakukan nyemprotkan dua hari satu kali.
I spray once every 2 days so that the leaves look good.
Mulus gitu daunnya. Saya takutnya
I'm afraid of the pest.
Pada waktu musim palawija, saya menggunakan pesemprotan itu 1 minggu.
I spray my plants 3 times a week.
1 minggu 3 kali. Mungkin
If I don't do it 3 times a week, I'm afraid the leaves won't be strong enough to stop the pests.
Yang dari palawija.
I spray twice a week. If I do it only once, then I get lots of worms.
Because of this, each morning there is the same ceremony among the group of farmers, mixing up poisonous chemicals for killing pests and disease. All of the regulations or directions for mixing the pesticides and other chemicals are ignored. Wearing gloves and face masks is just regarded as an inconvenience. If it is felt that the level of infestation is worrisome, the farmers mix their own doses of poison according to their feelings. Sometimes they mix one chemical with another, or increase the amount of adhesive so that the poison sticks to the plants longer. Mixtures are often made which are 2 or 3 times more powerful than some pesticides already banned by the government. Then the procession for the attack begins. In the fields, kilogram upon kilogram of chemical poison is strewn by farmers, endangering themselves, the community, and the environment. Deadly nerve poisons, often banned in Europe and America, are promoted and advertised as medicine for crops, something that cures, not something that kills. While companies at the national and international level make claims of safety consciousness and environmental awareness, at the field level, anything goes to sell a product. Perhaps this is why that although 80% of all pesticides are used in developed countries, 90% of all pesticide poisonings occur in developing countries.
Untuk penyerapan fungisida, terutama untuk lokal ini diperkirakan
Fungicide use, particularly Rovral in the Larangan area and roundabouts, is about half a ton each month.
Sekitar setengah ton. Terus itu diperkirakan kalau musim-musim ramai di kios-kios sekitar
During the busy season,
Larangan ini,
the little shops in the Larangan area may be able to sell about 1 or 2 boxes a day.
Mencapai 1 sampai 2 box itu, Pak. Di sekitar 20
So around 10 to 20 liters.
20 liter habis itu. Untuk wilayah Larangan sendiri ya, terutama untuk suku Brebes yang kami ketahui adalah
For the Larangan area, particularly the Brebes district,
kira-kira ya 1 bulan untuk saat dalam sanggu ini ya kira-kira
as far as I know, we sell about 1 ton a month.
1 tonan, Pak.
Jadi untuk seperti Dusban itu memang setiap bulan.
Dursban, for example, we manage to sell quite a lot each month. Sometimes 20 cartons, sometimes 30.
Juga seperti Titan itu juga cukup lumayan, antrakol.
Just consider that, in this not-so-extensive area, every month an average of half a ton of one brand of pesticide can be sold. Meanwhile, more than 20 brands of pesticides are distributed, employing high-promotion techniques. Therefore, can we not assume that for 1 month, more than 10 tons of poisonous chemicals are sprayed in the area?
Because many people believed that without pesticide, production would not be a success. But according to our experience, 20 years of introducing the green revolution type agriculture here in Indonesia, we have proved that in certain cases, pesticides should not be an integrated component. It may or may not be. For example, against the brown plant hopper, since we forbid the use of 57 formulation of pesticide, broad spectrum pesticide against brown plant hopper, there is no more brown plant hopper. Very difficult to look for brown plant hopper now. So that is one proof that without pesticide, production is successful. In this case, pesticide is not an integrated component for success of production with regard to brown plant hopper problem.
It is not the farmers who are to blame. They are fed this exaggerated image of the dangers of pests so that they turn to pesticides. Equipment that is damaged or leaking continues to be used because new equipment is too expensive for the farmers. Spilling poison down one's back is not a problem for the farmers when they cannot feel the immediate effects. Spraying without a face mask is an almost normal sight in the fields. They do not realize that spraying with one in front of another means poisoning one another. During a break, they suck in more poison. Further pollution is caused by throwing out leftover chemicals into the ditches, which lead to the streams and rivers. This is the kind of equipment required by law in many countries for the use of hazardous pesticides. You will never see this in Indonesia, except maybe at research stations and company demonstrations. How can poor farmers afford such equipment? And even if they could, wearing such gear in the tropics would cause heat exhaustion. Besides equipment, regulations on packaging, labeling, storage, sale, and disposal are routinely ignored. Even after harvesting with the produce ready for the market, more pesticide is used to kill any pest eggs that might remain. In the household, these poison-soaked shallots are consumed by all. Used packets of chemicals are thrown out haphazardly into open garbage areas. It is not uncommon for old pesticide cans to be used as children's playthings. In the villages, the seller of fertilizers and chemicals for destroying pests and disease pay no attention to the regulations. For example, they sell chemicals as well as foodstuffs. Moreover, they store foodstuffs and chemicals in the same warehouse. The shopkeepers do not care or do not know that handling chemicals without a face mask in open places endangers both themselves and others in the vicinity. Labels are impossible for farmers to read, but often there are no labels at all. The important thing for the shopkeeper is that selling chemicals for agribusiness is very profitable. In the past, I sold food and pesticides, but selling food wasn't very profitable, so now I just sell pesticides.
Kalau memang musimnya itu sedang musim.
During the planting season, we can sell quite a lot of chemicals like Dursban every month. I can make enough to put my kids through school.
The spread of chemicals has effects on almost every part of the environment, and particularly on the farmers themselves.
Of the farmers that come to the community health center or my practice, there have been some who have complained of symptoms of pesticide poisoning. In my opinion, there has been a trend of an increasing amount of pesticide poisoning in this area because of excessive use.
80% of the pesticides in circulation, that is, those used by farmers in the Brebes district, consist of three kinds. These are organophosphates, organochlorines, and carbonates. Organophosphates are the ones used mostly in this area.
Sekian banyaknya pestisida yang digunakan dan pengaruh negatifnya terhadap kesehatan manusia. Salah satu adalah dari golongan organofosfat.
It is the organophosphates that can interfere with the efficient working of certain cells in the body.
Yang dapat mengganggu kelancaran kerja suatu enzim yang ada atau yang berada dalam tubuh kita.
These cells function as biological catalysts and ensure that the muscles, glands, and nerve cells work in an organized and harmonious way.
Otot-otot atau kelenjar-kelenjar dan sel-sel saraf bekerja secara terorganisir dan harmonis.
Research has been carried out to find out how far pesticide pollution has affected the farmers' health in the Brebes and Tegal areas.
Oke, wadah Hobsin, buka kafe loro. Kesan-kesan saya selama penelitian ini adalah
During this investigation, I learned many things that I hadn't expected. Particularly that the spraying itself really does cause poisoning to the farmers. We recorded all the events carried out in the spraying process. Then we asked the farmers about any symptoms they felt before, while, and after spraying. Then we did what we called follow-up 1. 1 hour after observation of the spraying, we asked the farmers again about how their bodies felt. After that, we visited the respondents the next day. We asked them again about any symptoms that had emerged. We discovered that from just 2 villages, more than 40 farmers experienced chemical poisoning.
What we found was that during the spraying time, the farmers had far more symptoms. 5 to 25% of them would have symptoms like dizziness and headache and nausea, blurry vision, shortness of breath, chest pain, red eyes, itchy skin, all the kinds of signs and symptoms we do associate with pesticide overdose.
According to the World Health Organization, the use of pesticides ranks as follows: extremely hazardous, highly hazardous, moderately hazardous, slightly hazardous. Some other research has been done by the health department in the Brebes and Tegal areas. The analysis of cholinesterase in the blood.
Pemeriksaan cholinesterase darah bertujuan untuk melihat sampai berapa jauh para petani penyemprot bawang.
The analysis of blood cholinesterase is used to see how far the shallot farmers have been contaminated by pesticides.
In 1992, 88% of the farmers tested evidenced mild to moderate levels of poisoning. The number of severe poisoning cases has never been researched because farmers suffering heavy symptoms collapse or are taken directly to hospital. It is only after the first symptoms of sickness occur when the farmers feel the effects of poisoning in their bodies.
After I had been spraying, I started salivating. I felt dizzy, nauseous. My muscles tightened up, and my body was all itchy.
Yes, after spraying I felt nauseous, and my head felt heavy. Then my body felt sore and stiff.
The spilling of chemicals little by little eventually leads to serious consequences.
In the end, I couldn't bear the itching all over my body. I went all over the place looking for treatment. After the rash went away, I began working again, and then I got sick again. Now, if any spraying is going on, even the smell makes me dizzy. So now I can't do any spraying.
If I spray, I use a mixture of DDT super, hortation, and dustic titan. I got some of the spray on my body, and my body started itching very quickly.
I was spraying for about 8 years, and then in 1985, I got a rash. I went to see someone about the itching, and I got an injection at the health center. While I had some medicine, it got better. But when the medicine ran out, the itching came back.
The effects of heavy pesticide poisoning can affect anybody quite unexpectedly.
I felt the symptoms while I was spraying chilies. I was using an insecticide called Monitor. I felt nauseous, and then my head began spinning. I saw the ground go round and round, so I went directly home. The treatment I got at home didn't work, so I was taken to the hospital. They treated me there. When I came round, I went home. But up until now, I have been sick. I can't walk, and my bones feel all stiff.
Of course, the government is responsible for this. Actually, there is a pesticide committee under the agricultural department who made all the regulations about using pesticide. But the implementation of the regulation is very weak.
I don't really believe that pesticides is the insurance for crops because we have seen in the past and also today, I think, that pesticides used for a long time will not only not ensure crops, but even in many cases, the continued use of pesticides has very strange reaction. The bad insects become immune to the pesticides. So there would be a big increase of insect attacks against crops. That I think the history of the use of pesticide in the past 20 years or more has shown this to happen. It can happen. And therefore, it is wrong, I think, to say that pesticides is an insurance for crops.
In 1962, when Rachel Carson wrote Silent Spring, she imagined birds and insects dying. She could not have conceived of millions of third world farmers being exposed to deadly poisons on a daily basis. For too long, the profits from this poison business have been privatized, while the costs have been socialized and borne by the farmers, their families, and the environment. Indonesia has taken bold steps to address this problem through integrated pest management policies and programs. And other countries in the region are following this lead. Still, the problem remains large. What can we, as consumers, as advocates, as scientists, as government officials, as journalists, as field workers, and as concerned citizens, do to support these farmers who continue to suffer under the shadow of poison?